A very good afternoon, Mr. Selva Chinniah, our distinguished panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Productivity and Competitiveness webinar session titled Immigration Law Improving Malaysia Labour Market and Globalized World. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, that immigration play a very important role to enhance the talent of the nation. For today's session, our objective are to discuss on way forward on how to improve labor market in Malaysia, a sense of improving immigration law. Our second objective of today's session is to discuss the differences, approach, tools and institutional arrangement needed for Malaysia in developing and evaluating current policies, regulation, institutions that impact immigration law. Our third objective will be to discuss the challenges in improving labor market in Malaysia and how best to change the behavior of industries in adopting best practices and technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the ranking, Malaysia was ranked 27th position in the World Competitiveness Yearbook in 2020, published by the Institute of Management Development World Competitiveness Center from Switzerland. Even though we are ranked better, but when it comes to this immigration law, our immigration law rank dropped by 25 position to 44th position from the previous ranking in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, it shows that how important of immigration law to ensure that our talent workforce can be used to enhance our performance and productivity of the nation. All you know that under the Malaysia Productivity Blueprint, the thrust one we are talking about developing future workforce. Always talk about how we want to create a conducive working environment towards productivity and competitiveness of the nation. So that's the reason why we bring here a very important and distinguished panelist. That's Mr. Selva. So before that, I think I just briefly explain or read his biodata on Mr. Selva. Mr. Selva has 25 years experience with the Malaysian Immigration Department. He joined the civil service as an immigration officer in 1989 and retired from the service as the head of international affairs, sole proprietor of Mr. Selva Advocates and Solicitors. He handling human trafficking, SOSMA, labor, industrial court matters, civil and criminal, especially immigration related cases on consultation. During his years with the Enforcement Division of the Immigration Department, Mr. Selva dealt with a wide range of immigration issues involving local and foreign workers, including possession of fraudulent passes and visas, internal travel documents and passport. He was the Immigration Department prosecutor for 18 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I think with that introduction, I now call upon Mr. Selva to discuss further on the immigration law. Mr. Selva, hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sugo. Thank you for the big introduction. So actually, the immigration law is very, very intricate and well settled, I would say, because there were few amendments were made in year 2000 and 2007 in regards to scrutinize and make the law better. Can we go to the first slide, please? Yeah. Before we go further, this is Section 6 of Immigration Act, which spells out, because I just took it from the Act. You see, there's only four people category who can enter the country, meaning you must have a valid entry permit, meaning entry permit here means permanent resident, meaning you are a red IC holder. Then you can stay in this country. Number two, if you have a children endorsed in your entry permit, they can stay here. And then number four, the D is those who have been exempted by the Director General. Okay, and the most important is the C, which says he is in possession of a valid pass. Whoever wish to stay in Malaysia, be it short term, long term, or employment, they need a pass. It should be prefixed with all the discipline of that pass. For example, student pass, employment pass, whatever pass. And let me explain the section 55 exemption under DG. See, in Sabah, we have called this IMM 13. IMM 13, Kad Burung, all that is under the discretion of the Director General, where he exempts them from the above and issues them the IM13 card, which says a pass also. So on that score, those who want to live in this country must, and it's mandatory to have a pass, valid pass. It doesn't say pass, must be valid. Failing which, you will be considered overstay. If you don't have, even though you have a passport, when you don't have a pass in it, you deem to be entering the country illegally without going through proper immigration checkpost. For your information, Malaysia practices two-tier visa regime, meaning we have visa and we have pass. Who needs visa? Normally, it is a bilateral and unilateral. Normally, Commonwealth countries are exempted from having visa. For example, US has a unilateral whereby when US citizen comes in, we don't impose visa, whereas we go to their country, they impose visa. And similarly, if India and Malaysia are Commonwealth countries, when India wish to visit Malaysia, the citizens need to get the visa and vice versa. So on that score, even though a visa is granted in the country of origin, that doesn't warrant your entry. That is subject to the discretion of the immigration officer, who will assess you whether your intention performing your journey is for holiday or otherwise. They can refuse your entry too. So next slide, please. Okay, before I go to other slide, this is a very important article. All citizens must have this in the corner of your mind. Meaning, this is the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. This is the first article which I would like to read. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Let me explain here. The key words here are human beings, equal, dignity, rights, and most importantly, spirit of brotherhood. I think the viewers should take this with a pinch of salt. Even though it's a bitter pill, we have to swallow, because the nation building is, I would say, mostly dependent on the foreign workforce. And I think Malaysians are civilized, and I think we should understand, practice, and put this article into our mind. And whenever we see some foreigners, we have to have this behind our mind to say that we should treat them in a spirit of brotherhood. Because of their economical challenges, they are here. Because of better economical challenges, Malaysians are globally scattered for the same reason. So the reason are same, but the consequences and the situation differs. Next slide, please. Okay, this is passes. This is under immigration regulation 8. So these are the passes where you have, as I mentioned earlier, that employment, there is a pass. If Sabah Sarawak, Malaysian working in federal government in Sabah or Sarawak, they need to apply for a work pass, even though they are a Malaysian. The pass comes in, and then dependence pass. Visit pass is what we call it. All these tourists, they will have it social visit pass. A transit pass is something where you are destined to go to Sri Lanka. You're coming from India. All right. So you need to get transit here, and then you go to the third country. So that is the transit pass. Transit pass normally they will give for 72 hours or more, depends on situation. Special pass is special. For example, you are having an employment pass and it expires on 1st of August. Unfortunately, for reasons, unexplained reasons, your pass could not be obtained on that very day. So in order to make your stay legal in this country, a special pass will be issued, whereby this will be a buffer, so that when your proper pass being granted, you can utilize this special pass in the meantime. Landing pass is normally in the port area, and a residence pass is a new pass which was introduced in year 2010, 11 if I'm not mistaken, around that time, because of the emergence of Talent Corporation. I will speak about it later, where Mr. Sugu has got some explanation on that. So this residence pass, meaning you will have 5 years plus 5 years. The residence pass are given to top-notch industry players. The reason why this pass was introduced, because they want to retain talents, and they will be given leeway to work in multiple sectors. If a person holding employment pass, they are bound to one employer and they need to cancel the pass, and then the insider trading, and then so many issues will arise. So in order to retain the talent and stimulate the economy, the government has embarked on residence pass, and simultaneously we use the residence pass for single mothers who has lost their citizen husbands, or the children who has got a valid claim to stay here with the spouses, citizen spouses. So this is to facilitate for long-term visas. Pass. So whatever we can say, everything is subject to the discretion of the director, meaning Director General. This pass is not an absolute right. At any point of time, the Director General can cancel your pass and ask you to leave the country. But in order to cancel the pass, there are procedures. It is not done arbitrarily, but there are procedures to be followed, where you will be given a right to defend why your pass cannot be cancelled. And if your reasoning makes or convince the Director General, then the decision will be otherwise. Next slide, please. Okay. You may ask, why must we have passport? Some countries, they don't have passport. They have a paper like, what shall I say, like Taiwan now, we have endorsed the Taiwan passport, because this section clearly says that every person entering Malaysia shall produce to an immigration officer a passport. And in the case of non-citizen, a valid visa for Malaysia issued by the authority. That means our government, our High Commission abroad, they will issue a visa. So here, the requisite is produce to an immigration officer, meaning to say, whoever entered the country, it is a mandatory that you must appear before an immigration officer. Without passing through the immigration officer, that tantamount to entering the country illegally. So, on that score, people might ask, how come sometimes some immigration officers scribble in my passport, write something in my passport, that passport belongs to my government. And this section 4 says, an immigration officer may make or any passport produced under this endorsement as he thinks fit. Endorsement, writing, and chop. All right. I think this is a very clear thing that if anybody asks why must we show passport, even Malaysian, this is for your information, if a Malaysian doesn't have a passport, he's coming, let's say from third world, coming from London, he transited in Doha or Qatar, he lost his passport there. But in Dubai, there is no passport check anymore. You can board in to your flight. When you arrive into Malaysia, a question can be asked, can I enter without passport? Yes, you have a right of entry. Section 7 of Immigration Act says you got the right to enter, provided you prove you are a Malaysian. How are you going to prove where you will be detained by immigration? You can immediately call your next of kin to produce your IC, whatever document which can prove that you are a Malaysian. So that is the exemption whereby the right of entry in immigration act, which allows Malaysian to enter a right of entry. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, this is visa. Visa actually, this is just for our understanding. Visa is visitors information screening advance, meaning to say, or sometimes we used to say visitors information sent in advance, we used to say during my immigration time. Reason being, before you enter the country, your details has already in our database. We know who are you, whether your details tally with our list in our authorities or enforcement agencies radar, then we can easily trace who is coming into this country. Most countries, for example, Australia, they have this whereby you need not to be present at Australian High Commission, whereby every detail, minute detail of yours will be submitted during your visa application. So this is the visa. Next is the pass.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Okay, this is called the pass, which I mentioned. This is pass. There, can you see the endorsement there? Okay, this is a special pass. Actually, this is meant for some foreign workers who wish to work here. At the point of entry, immigration will give them the special pass and direct them to report to immigration office where Shah Alam. Okay, this is the remark the immigration officers chop and writes in your passport. So meaning you can go to immigration office, your expiry will be a month from the date of arrival, and whereby a proper work pass will be given to you upon completion of the relevant document. Next slide, please. Okay, now employment pass, because this is what jives with our topic today: improving Malaysian labor market in globalized world, the globalized world, because we need talents, we need experts to contribute in our nation building. So what government has done is we have employment pass category 1, where the approval will be granted for 60 months, 5 years. We want them to be here with a basic salary of 10,000. And then we have category 2 up to 24 months, which the salary is more than 5,000. And category 3, of course, it's on the website and everything, but this category 3 has taken a setback, and the DG has got some reservations to approve. This category 3 depends on cases. Specifically, this category 3 is implemented in the Cyberjaya MDEC for IT industry. I think IT is very highly demanded, where Cyberjaya is depending on that. Right? Next. Okay. This we call it agency kawal selia. In order a person, I'm talking this specifically for expatriates, even for normal blue collar work, social, visit pass, temporary employment. Even they need to be endorsed by the governing agency kawal selia. You see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12 agency kawal selia, meaning to say, if I want to employ a engineer or whoever, so you like it or not, I must go through few of this. If it is not relevant to me, then I have to go to MIDA, or I have to go to biotech. If it involves sports, I have to go to Majlis Sukarnegara. If it involves professors or whatever, we have to go to education ministry. So there are more than one agency which governs the facility or assurance of these passes. Okay, this is agency kawal selia. Next. Even though you monitor, but there's somebody else is going to approve yours. Okay, that is the challenge. KDN, JKE, which is Employment Pass Division, and then Suruhanjaya, Security Commissions, Iskandar, Malaysia, JPA, Magic, Bank Negara, Thailand Corp, ECER, MIDA, MDEC, and all these are the approving agencies. If talking about IT, MDEC, there is an office in Cyberjaya where immigration officers are stationed there to manage that. So MDEC is one of the agency, and whoever involved in that approval must consent that approval. Without that consent, it will be in an embargo. So there are issues whereby, in order to bring in foreign talents, there are multiple hurdles need to be passed. And what are those? I think the moderator will be explaining, and our objective here is to find a solution, and everybody here, especially MPC, is playing a very pivotal role in addressing the issue and improvising the system. I think that is my last slide, and Mr. Moderator, I'm passing it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Selva. Very meaningful and knowledgeable information that we get from you. Mr. Selva, based from your explanation, there are altogether 8 classes of passes that we have. But among the passes, the most important is about the employing pass, where the pass used to bring in foreign workers under PLKS. Okay, pas lawatan kerja sementara. And of course, in that line of the passes, how ease of the hiring foreign workers can push Malaysia competitiveness? Selva?
Mr. Sugu, the last word was not very clear, Mr. Sugu. Can you repeat the question, please?
The questions based on the passes, employing passes, which talking about PLKS. We are talking about hiring foreign workers. How ease of hiring foreign workers can push Malaysia competitiveness?
Okay. I think this question is a bit broad, because Malaysian competitiveness here, what I would conclude or I could define here is Malaysia is still a nation in building. Our development, our construction, for example, classic example is our MRT, ECER, and then our highways and our skyscrapers, many new projects, many housing estates emerging. So who is going to build them? Without building them, you cannot stimulate the economy. It is economic fabric which ties multiple facets of person. We need engineers, we need foreign laborers. Because why I'm saying that we need foreign workers here, and this pandemic has given us a very clear indication, that even Malaysia now is willing to work in Pasar Borong. I think it is a really remarkable thing which has taken place, whereby Malaysians are working in Pasar Borong, where they can be there as early as 6:30 to load and unload vegetables. So the situation determines whether Malaysians can adapt to the situation or not. Most Malaysians, most quality workforce, most top-notch quality workforce from north to south, east to west are flocked in our eastern region. I think eastern region, whereby the pull factor is triple. They got attracted to that pull factor, and that is another reason we are shortage of our local manpower. But having saying that, the foreign workers compared to locals, they contribute directly to the nation building. You can name it anything, Mr. Sugu. Whatever things we are using, whatever shop we are entering, whatever restaurants we are entering, I think hardly we can deny to say that there is no touch by a foreign workers. Let's face the reality. We need foreign workers, but we need a properly managed and organized foreign worker management. Otherwise, it will be a snowball. As today, there were a webinar yesterday. Someone from the leading NGO mentioned that the legal registered migrant is about 2.2 million, and the unregistered or the illegal immigrants about 4 million. But sad to say, we don't have a clear statistics to spell out the exact number, how many foreigners are here, and amongst those, how many are legal and illegal. So just for your information, Mr. Gu, if you look into Port Klang, we have jetty, and then Batam in Malacca, and then Penang, because the number of the number of the number of the number of foreigners coming in from a neighboring country is very, very high. The influx, the turnaround, they can come in for 1 month, they will leave. So we need some enforced or strict border control management. Border control management. Otherwise, it is difficult to determine who are in and who has gone out. And government also has taken cognizance of this. And I think in 2007 or 8, I'm not very sure, MMEA was formed, Maritime Agency, where they do the patrolling, and they have been doing good job. Many arrests have been in the coastal areas as well. So coming back to the question, my standing here is we need foreign workers, but we need a just managed foreign worker to strike a balance with the need and the want, the need of the nation and the want of the industry, whereby there must be a balance. Slowly, with the new implementation which is supposed to take place this year, that is multi-tier levy mechanism, when it is being implemented, then the employers will have the pain point. The more foreign workers you employ, the more levy you have to pay, and naturally the discipline will set in and we can see a better Malaysia.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Selva. I just want to echo your opinion that the development of the nation depends on the labor force that the country has. This labor force can be categorized either local workers, it can be foreign workers. Foreign workers can be legal and illegals. But the important is that in order to be competitive, the nation must have embedded costs, regardless of the local or foreign workers. You see, and in line with your explanation about the multi-tier levy, the Malaysia MPC under the Technical Working Group of Employing Workers, which under Pemuda, we are trying to come with consensus how to make sure that the multi-tier levy can be accepted by all categories of people. Because multi-tier levy are talking about how the cost of doing business in Malaysia, is it competitive or not? So in order to be a competitive nation, first we must produce goods via quality and with a competitive price. So these two actually talk about how we can improvise the Malaysians' ranking in the world in terms of competitiveness. Okay. Another thing, Selva, when they talk about the employing pass on the category 1, 2, and 3, which are talking about talent foreign workers, how do you think that, or what we can do to attract foreign talent to Malaysia? What we can do to attract foreign talent to Malaysia? Even we have employment pass category 1, 2, and 3. Selva, hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Selva, under Talent Corp, there is a program called what do I say? Written REP, Written Expert Program. We have many Malaysian controlling giant companies overseas, whereby Talent Corp has embarked on this initiative to bring them back. That means a return expert program. They have multiple goodies for them. You know, the AP, the tax exemption, and whatever you name it, they have it. But bringing in expert from abroad, it is a very, very noble initiative, but we have to be very, very sensitive that we can invite the talents, provided we must be well settled. We must be well settled with our system, Meaning to say, if the company, the economy is not that strong, they can't bring in the stronger people to champion or to captain that organization. In order to run that, it is not a single man who sits on the top, but it's a chain reaction. It is from bottoms up. To run an organization, I just quote an example of a manufacturing company. There are some manufacturing company in Penang where they don't employ foreign workers. But in order to sustain that, we need good paymasters. It's end of the day, money matters. How much I take home. Because, for example, if we are talking about experts from Japan or from Korea or from Taiwan who wish to come to Malaysia, there must be some competitive financial inducement to them for them to consider. So I think Malaysia has embarked on this, whereby we were producing TVs, big TVs those days, and then we have embarked on to high tech, and then we went to microchips. So that is a good indicator. And in order to have all this, I'm coming back to the law, Mr. Sugu, because you can have everything. You can have a wonderful law. You can have wonderful procedures, but it needs to be enforced. It needs to be enforced. Like what recently we faced is about the palm oil issue. There was an issue where one of the big companies were responding to the allegation by the big companies from other nation. So I think we have to be very, very sensitive. If that enforcement, as I mentioned earlier, that we have multiple agency, we have multiple regulators, all right? We have multiple authorities, and we have multiple facilitating agencies. I think all of them must have a synergy. They have to synergize, and they have to have a common point to meet in order to boost the economy, whereby people must feel free to step into Malaysia. That could be one of the reasons, Mr. Sugu, we dropped from 25 to 44, because the fear of persecution, the fear. I walk on the street, I fear. I drive car, fear. Suddenly I sit in my factory, I fear. So why? So these are the questions we need to address and educate our people, that nothing and no one is above the law. So I think that is the most important thing, whereby we need to give confidence to the experts that when you come in, you are safe.
Okay, Mr. Selva. By the way, just want to echo or agree with you. Some industry players claim that local workers are not interested to work in certain areas. But I think one of the main reasons why you explained earlier is that go back to the wages. If that job does not give you a competitive wage, of course, local will not accept the job. That's why they say the job goes to the foreign workers. Foreign workers, they have their own way of wages. Okay, they're willing to work at the lower rate. But local workers, they need a very competitive wages, okay, to do the job. That's why in MPC, we are embarking in promoting what we call it productivity linked wage system, whereby you link the wages to the performance productivity. If the company make a lot of money, a lot of profits, so they pay back to the employees based on the incentive, in profitability bonus or competitive bonus. Or even we also encourage more company to pay skill incentive, whereby you have specified certain skills, you are qualified to get certain incentive. So if we can create a very good working environment or conducive working environment locally, I think local employees will go towards taking job which is not being fulfilled previously and which was given back or given to the foreign workers to job. So it's one of the important things how we want to link that with the local, of course, a startup your wages to performance productivity. Okay. Another, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Selva, our rank have dropped. Okay, but it doesn't mean that we are not good. Our immigration law is very good, but implementation wise. So I think, what kind, in your opinion, how amendment to Malaysian immigration law can improve Malaysia's standing on immigration law? What's your opinion, Mr. Selva?
Mr. Sabu, I think we have to understand to amend a law is a very, very laborious and challenging task. I would suggest that the law, the existing law in 2004, under Section 6, if you are an illegal immigrant entered the country without any pass, that means you came in, dorang tikus lah, you came in, you didn't appear before an immigration officer, you will be, let's say if you have arrested by immigration, it's a compoundable, it's a 3,000 ringgit compound, or if you have been charged in court, you will be given 5 years or 10,000 fine or both. Maximum the court will give you about 2 months, 3 months, depends how long you have been staying in this country. The amendment was done with an addition of with 6 strokes, 6 rotan. Very, very serious offense, meaning if you don't have any passport or you don't have any proof of your entry, then you deserve a stroke whipping, not more than 6 plus fine plus imprisonment. I think I don't see any reason for us to make it more punitive, because that itself sends the message. On the same note, Mr. Sogua, if you compare our neighboring country, nobody dares to overstay because the enforcement is slower than lightning. Immediately they can detect, they can take action against you, because that action taken sends a very strong message to potential abusers to leave the country. That really saved the influx or the snowball of illegal immigrants in any country. But in our country, because our geographical position, you can come in and can go out rampantly because we have all the sea, land, and air facilities. So that is the, I would say, a geographical curse to us. And then, furthermore, we have got this law called Human Trafficking Act. It also covers immigration, forced labor, migrant smuggling, meaning you are smuggling migrants, illegal immigrants cross-border, that tantamount under smuggling of migrant, which is being listed under SOSMA. Under SOSMA means serious offense on serious offense measures, SOSMA, whereby it's non-bailable. If you are caught for smuggling of migrants, section 26A to J, you are gone. You will be in until to court of appeal. Easily 5-6 years you have to be inside. The law is very, very stringent and very, very serious. Still, people are not fear, because everybody is telling rain, 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 but I don't see the floor or the grass is wet. So I don't trust. Oh yeah, I have, but I don't see any practical or feasible or serious action taken. Of course, there are action takers compared to the number of migrants. So, quote unquote, official and unofficial number. We can't do that. Fine. We put it aside. Doesn't matter. Then we have employers employing illegal immigrant. You will be imprisoned for 6 months, minimum 6 months, and whipping if you were found employing more than 5 illegal immigrants. That is serious. And then, for example, or they can opt to Section 55E, which says an illegal immigrant found in your premises. For example, I have a restaurant. I have a foreign worker working there, and he was arrested. So the prosecutor decides to charge under 55E, which fall under occupier's liability. And each worker, if you plead guilty, you need to pay 10 to 30,000 ringgit per worker. Per worker. All right. 5 to 30,000. It ranges from 5 to 30. It can be 30, it can be 5, it can be 10, whatever. So that is serious enough. Okay, fine. And there is Section 56(1)AA, which has got a similar effect of Section 55B, the same offense, the same punishment as harboring. 55, employing. 56, harboring. Even though you have someone with you at home illegally, you are subject for legal action. You are committing an offense. Even there were many cases whereby the domestic helpers who overstayed, the employer were slapped with compound, 5,000 ringgit, many cases. So the law is well settled. Okay, we say, okay, fine, all this, okay. And if a company is found to employ illegal immigrants, and worst case scenario now is the inclusion of AMLAT WA, Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing Act of proceed of unlawful activities. Wow, this is a very long act, whereby I am a contractor or I'm an employer who engage with foreigner, and when the authority arrests me, foreigners are found in my premises and they don't have proper documents, they can freeze my entire account. They can invoke the AMLAT, Anti-Money Laundering Act. They freeze my account because those illegal immigrants' earnings which you also earned, considered as proceeds of unlawful activities, meaning to say the activities were right, but it was conducted unlawfully without a proper document which empowers you to reap or to yield their labor force into your company account. So that itself, it's very, very serious. Many companies are being brought to court now under the same thing, Mr. Sugu. I think the law is well settled. Enforcement need to be enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. for a lengthy explanation on that issue. We have a question from a participant, Mr. Selva, Mr. Lokman from the Kuala Lumpur, asking a question. How can foreign talents coach Malaysian graduates to be competent person and contribute towards nation building? Mr. Selva, comment?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Lokman, thank you for the question. End of the day, we have to see whether the competent candidate which Mr. Lokman refers is equipped with knowledge. If he has the knowledge, we can enhance through skills. Let me share this. One of the Pemuda member, he mentioned this, that the success of Malaysian graduates, or they can be a bright students, but when go for job market interview, sometimes they fail to convince the board. You see, in any organization, I think all of us agree that you can have a first class honors, you can have the gold medalist, but your fate will be determined in the 10 minutes interview. So are you prepared? Is our local education system is equipped with this kind of niche uh, ability to be introduced into the young minds before they leave the varsity? Because that is very, very important. So what this Datuk Sri was mentioning to us, that when 10 or 15, and this is in Penang, I think more than 10 or 15, most of them are cream of the cream and they fail to be employed. So under his organization, he conducted a training for 6 months where he exposed those creams with soft skills, interpersonal communication, soft skills, computer skills, how to present a paper, how to structure your idea, how to deliver, how to answer a question. So you can write on paper, it's you, your paper and the pen. When you come to industry, it's more than that. So I think we have to take into consideration that there are many good souls, good Samaritans there who's willing to coach these young minds, provided they are willing to learn. I think they can get to many organizations, or they can, Mr. Lokman, you can link yourself to HRDF, where they do have this sort of training which subsidized by HDRF as well. There are some organizations who have been accredited by HRDF, which conducts this kind of training to make our young graduates marketable. I think you can go into HRDF and see which are the companies. Maybe you can write into them. They can more than willing to assist because it will be subsidized by HRDF. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Selva. I just want to share with you, and we all know that the post-COVID has contributed to higher level of unemployment among the graduates, which is, I think, is a challenge that the government faced to make sure that this unemployed among graduates can be reduced. And I think the government should rethink on employing talent, or we call it talent foreign workers under category 1, 2, and 3, should be given certain posts to the local graduates. So it means that if there is a local employees ready to do the job under the foreign workers talent, I think that post will be given to the local, because that actually will reduce the unemployment among the graduates. Because sometimes we that local are not competent, but I think they are competent, but we must give them a chance to make sure that that post can be fulfilled by the local, rather than talking about giving the post to the foreign workers under category 1 and so on. Okay, Mr. Selva, there is another question from Mr. Ashim from Pahang. It's asking, immigration law in Malaysia, how far we left behind to other countries, example Singapore?
I think we are equally good, or we are better. I think if you heard what I have explained in regards to the enforcement and the law which we have, it is equally good, and even I think it's more stringent than Singapore. The question here is enforcement, not the law per se.
Okay. So another question, Mr. Selva. this caller. Just put the name there. Hi, may I ask if the Director General decide to cancel the pass or refuses to renew the pass, any recourse can ask the DG to issue the pass. Once they cancel,
Of
can
course.
they recourse?
Yeah, I understand. Mr. Sugu, you see, as I mentioned, the DG has got a vast discretion. The law, the intention of the parliament when they draft the law is to have a proper control over the migrants. That's why it is an immigration act, which indirectly or directly impact the locals as well, especially the employers and other industry players. Under Section 9 of the Immigration Act, the DG has got all the powers to cancel, but it is not arbitrary. You will be given a avenue to reply why your pass should not be cancelled. If you can't give a convincing or proper explanation why your pass can't be cancelled, all right? So I think it goes back to his decision. He can feel that your explanation is not good enough for me not to cancel your pass because your presence here, if someone has gone to the cancellation of the pass, that means something has happened, some activities has taken place. That's why it reaches the DG. There are another provision also. For example, if a PLKS holder found working, his permit carries plantation worker. He is found working in a restaurant. When he pays the fine to the immigration or he pays the fine to court, automatically under Section 55(2) of Immigration Act, the pass become invalid. So the immigration officers has got the discretion under the delegation of powers where they can cancel, meaning they are not cancelling the pass because the pass has already automatically cancelled dead because of the offense they committed, then it need not to reach DG. Employment pass, residence pass, even PR for that matter, we can revoke with a very strong conviction that you fall under Section 8 of Immigration Act, which is prohibited immigrant. There are a long list of category of persons who we don't allow them in. Fear they can cause unrest or they will come in and then cause unrest.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Selva. We have another question from Mr. Kabe Ismail. Okay, Kabe Jamil. Hi, Selva. My name is Kabe. Thank you for the presentation. Please share with us how many cases on employer was actually brought to the court last year, which is in 2019. In Malaysia, our focus mostly on catching up with illegal immigrants, but very less action taken on employers who employ them. What's your comment on this? A very tough question, Mr. Why talking about
Yeah.
employment of that foreign workers.
Mr. Kabir, this is a very, very good question, and this is a common question and a famous question as well. Because I don't have the statistics, because I don't work with immigration anymore. But we can try to get the information. If you can leave your email to the organizer or you can leave your email there, we will try to get it. And then Pemuda is very good at it. We can share at least the random or the ballpark figure of the employee. Okay, question. Why there are many employers not charged in court, there are two situations. Number one, the employer might opt to pay compound in immigration department. That also is a punishment whereby most employers, they will pay a compound, which means if they have 20 workers, they will pay 5,000 each for section 55B. They will pay the compound and then they are free from the offense. And there are also cases which brought to court whereby when they fight the case, the authority fails to prove the case and they will be set free. On that score, there are cases, there are enforcement, there are rates every now and then, and the rate which is being taken by the authority, the investigation, the prosecution, every day there is prosecution in courts until, I think, for your information, because of these illegal immigrant issues which were causing mess or causing jam in other courts, proper courts, the government in 2007 decided to have Mahkamah Party, meaning a dedicated court in all detention centers, and it is active. Sebenarnya you have wilayah, you have Langkap, you have a dedicated court system whereby most of them will be charged, and some might opt to plead guilty and pay the fine. So there are punitive, there are punishments which has not been reported in the media widely. So I think that might have triggered Mr. Kabir for not getting the information about the prosecution against the employers. I hope I answered the question, Cik Kabir.
Thank you, Ms. Selva. We have another question. I think Muhammad Ismail Yusuf want to ask directly the question to you, Mr. Selva. Hakimin, can you open the line?
Hello, Mr. Selva.
Yeah, proceed.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. My name is Muhammad Ismail Yusuf from University Malaysia Perlis.
Okay.
All right. UNIMAP. I'm currently a lecturer here. Just one question about the party.
Okay.
All right. We know the pendatang asing tanpa izin, some suggested that the numbers is nearly 4 million, which is a significant numbers if you going to compare it with the numbers of labor force in Malaysia. Now, the irony is these people are illegal, meaning that if we find them, we need to deport them out from the Malaysia. But if you're talking about doing a purge, meaning you want to cleanse Malaysia from party, removing 4 million workforce from the economy will surely hurt Malaysian economy. So that's the irony how to deal with this party problem. Some people consider the party problem is like the invisible hand. You know, government should let the market driven. Yes, because these 4 million people, they come here even though illegally. They are not coming here to sleep here. They are doing the work, building things. The main force behind the economy. So that's why I think it is quite a unique problem. Meaning, if we want to remove that, how do we replace that? Because removing 4 million without replacing that 4 million will surely hurt our economy. Okay, what's your take on that? Thank you.
Okay. How shall I say, Mr. Ismail? Yeah. I think this is not your question. Actually, it is the entire nation's question about this. Why we can't flush out the foreign workforce? Okay. I hope you are not that young. In 1990, 95, we have one program called 6P, and then we have got Permutihan, and then we have got B2, back for good, pelbagai program which sends a signal to all the illegal immigrants, hey, wait, if you're illegal, wait, be careful, don't get caught. But the Malaysian government somehow or other will announce the legalization. Okay? Let me share this with you. During 6P, if I'm not mistaken, 2010, I think, 2010, 2011, during that exercise, what happened was the government announced all the illegals, please register. You know what happened at that time? I was still working, and when we sit to WGEI under the Pemuda committee, many private sector leaders were complaining when the government announced illegals please register, the legals abscond, especially Cameron Highlands. Most of the legals, they ran away and they just get themselves illegal and go and get registered. So immediately what we did was we put an embargo on that, and then the meeting instructed that all the legals to be registered first. That put a static position whereby they can't run. First we settle the legals, then we take on the illegals. So to answer to your question, Cik Ismail, yeah, because we have already given a signal to all the immigrants. Even recently, the government announced back for good, yeah, back for good, where they announced that you can leave the country, you pay about 400, and then you'll be blacklisted for 5 years. That was the announcement made. I think the statistics is not encouraging. As what we can conclude if we see that under the Perkeso, most legal immigrants need, I think it's mandatory to contribute Perkeso. If you look at Perkeso statistics, we might have about 2.5 million workers, meaning legal workers, they have employers. And then the spiral is too big. There is no statistic, as I mentioned earlier. There is no statistics to show the number of illegal immigrants. Today I come in, you're from border, right? If you're coming in from Padang Besar, they'll come in, they won't go out, they become illegal. Then they will use Lorong Tukos, they will go out. So these are the porous borders which contribute to large extent of these illegal immigrants. And then our enforcement and our placement and our check and balance and our reporting system. And this COVID has sent a very, very good signal. I quote, Pasar Borong Selayang. Now it is foreign worker free environment. Malaysians are grabbing that opportunity. Number two, PJ Old Town Market, no foreigners are allowed. Even it is enshrined in the local government regulation that foreigners are not allowed to work. When questions were put to the authority, they said, no, that is a practice because immigration issues the permit and they are allowed to work in the market. I think that is the catch-22 position whereby now the COVID has not, that real viruses into this illegal immigrant management has started to diminish. And another reason here is rent seekers. Rent seekers. Why is your question will be answered, Ismail, if each and every foreign workers to be considered as human being and workforce. But that is not the position. Now, every foreign workers are deemed to be a commodity. People trade them, people supply them. That is the sad state of affair now, whereby the foreign workers were brought in with empty promises. They are brought in with a contract agreement in the country of origin. When they arrive, they sign another contract, and then they got frustrated, and then they run off, and they become illegal. Mereka masuk, they enter as a legal and end up being illegal. So who is the cause? That means we need to embark onto a transparent and effective foreign worker management, whereby parties must made responsible, parties must made liable, parties must brought to the light about the rent-seeking activities which is rampant and digging deep into the poor migrants' pocket. And their pocket is going deeper and deeper, and it is the sad state whereby their voices are not being heard.
Thank you, Selva. I totally agree with you that foreign workers, they are not commodities. They come here to work. They are contributing to development of this nation itself. And of course, they are illegal or illegal. It all depends on how we treat them. See, when you're talking about illegals, there's something happened in between that make them illegals. So you must find a way how to make sure that we have less illegals, but we have more legal workers. Because with 4 million illegals doesn't mean that they're not contributing. They're contributing. We're talking about productivity of the nation. We are talking about GDP per employment. When you're talking employment, talking about local and foreign workers. See, a company maybe has 100 employees. Maybe they have 20 of them illegals, but doesn't mean that they are not contributing. It means that first we must think that they are not commodity. They are human beings. They come here to work and so on. So whatever we do, we must be very careful when deal with these legal, illegal employees. So Mr. Selva, there is another question. I think Mr. Kabe want to ask you directly on his question. Mr. Kabe, I
Yes.
have to you. Yeah.
Yes, Tugu. Thank you so much, Tugu.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Silva. Thank you for the answer for the first question I asked you.
Yep.
Okay, I got one question because I'm just a bit curious about what we explained early on about if you see that in Singapore as compared to Malaysia, you hardly find that's illegal immigrants there, and most probably because of the law, or I'm not sure because of the legal the acts somehow or other managed to curb this. And my thinking was like, when we actually, why people coming to Malaysia illegally, many of them, and most probably because of the requirement of a sub-agent, not the law itself, because of the sub-agent and the agent and the rest of it, that make it become very expensive for them to come and work in Malaysia. But at the same time, because it becomes expensive, that they are rather smuggle themselves in without going through the proper channel. If we, relax this requirement of the agents and a sub-agent here, most probably we get more people legals coming into Malaysia. And when it's legal, probably it's easy to control. That's one issue. Another issue is that, second question that I want to ask you is that, somehow I find it keputihan, the message of the putih time is not really good actually. If you see, like in Malaysia, most of us are waiting for police to make an announcement for our summon. Our summon, we know already, we don't pay now lah, don't pay. We wait until police make a 50% discount summons, and then only we come in. The same thing it goes that in Malaysia, message is that you can come in, don't worry. You wait until the day they make a keputihan, then you can go and join them, and then you can go back home free, no issue. What's your comment on that, Mr. Selva? Sorry to ask you a tough question.
No. Good question. Mr. Kabir, I'm going to answer your first question. Malaysia is not a destination nation. It is a transit destination. I hope you understand this. Meaning, people come into Malaysia not to stay in Malaysia, not to work in Malaysia. They are looking for a greener pastures. They want to go to Australia. They want to go to Singapore. They want to go to Thailand. That's why they come to Malaysia. Why many people are here? Mostly Indonesians, because they share the common culture, common food, common language, common religion. So they are complacent and they stay put here. And then the refugees is a different episode altogether. And then just for the meetings of information, I was one of the independent committee member for the management of foreign workers. We have concluded a very, very comprehensive, precise, compact, effective, I don't know what else to use, which was chaired by Yang Arif, retired Court of Judge, Datuk Sri Hishamuddin Yunus, a very distinguished soul and human being, whereby we have abolished, the committee has abolished the outsourcing license. I don't know whether you heard about that or not. There is no more outsourcing license, right? Whereby, as what you rightly mentioned, the third party intervention, no more third party, no more outsourcing license. Outsourcing license has put to sleep. Thereafter, we also propose that there shouldn't be a third party. Employer needs an employee. He should be responsible. He should take all the initiative, and all the processes must be transparent. Of course, I agree with you. Maid is very expensive, but there is a system called System Made Online, whereby you can apply on your own, and get the approval from the immigration. With a caveat, Mr. Kabir, can you get the candidate? Do you know the credential of the candidate? So indirectly, you have to depend on someone from Indonesia or your mate's friend or whoever it is. So the risk factor is there. So you still can go on System Made Online, whereby you can invite the maid on a social visit pass, and then you can apply onto the System Made Online, which is FOC. You do it yourself. Okay? And then the pemutihan, it's already being a culture. It's already a culture. That's why we cannot flush. I think I just want to, since you mentioned Singapore, I would like to say, because during my tenure, I worked very closely with Singapore authorities. All right? They have got the absolute autonomy to decide what they can do. The law, no compromise. The enforcement, no compromise. You're caught. For example, if you overstayed one day, the immigration can look for you next period of time.
That's
No
a
issue.
clear message. That's a very clear message. Yes.
Yeah, but we can't have apple to apple comparison to Malaysia. The most important significant thing is, which I don't think so, very, very significant, size. Singapore 9 by 16 miles. We are very huge. That is not permission for you to do all this, but having said whatever we have said, the enforcement, the integrity, the transparency, and conscious as human being that we are dealing with another human being and not commodity need to be engraved in our rent seeker's mind. Until then, this third party intervention will continue.
You see, if I can interject here, I mean, this issue, I worked with Pemuda last time on the issue on the foreign students coming to Malaysia. Sometime because of the requirement, I mean, I'm just picking out one example of the requirement is that the having the medical examination done in their country, and then when come down to Malaysia again after within 2 weeks, you'd have to take another medical examination. And we were saying that this is very costly. Why don't we just take it only one medical examination, either in Malaysia or whether in their country, whichever you want to accept it. So what I'm trying to refer is that sometime because of this unnecessary requirement like this, we think that creating and making the process become very expensive.
I know. This you call it RURB, right, Mr. Kabir?
Yes, no, it's something to do with
Yeah,
initiative
correct.
that requested by the
Correct. You see what happens? Why? Because I have to. I'm not justifying. If the medical cert, if the students coming from Australia, I think we can take it. I mean, I'm not telling Australia is good, but if it's coming, even the FWMCS, where you have an accredited hospital by Malaysian Ministry of Health, whatever you name it, whatever you can say, still the room or the avenue for them to temper and to bring ailment or to bring sickness to this country is very, very vast. We can't compromise on that. Why I'm saying this? There are cases whereby all done, made, domestic helper, everything is done. They arrive, medical all perfect. She's pregnant. How come?
Let's do it immediately.
You understand what I mean, Mr. Kabir?
I know.
The certain countries, I don't want to mention which country, but these are the caveats which the authority fear, so that we have to have a double check. Okay, if I were to take your suggestion that you come in and do your medical, if you are unfit, it's fair for us to send you back. It is more expensive than doing there. We can rest assured that 90% is okay, 10% only we take the risk. If we bring them here, we are taking 90% risks and 10% chances. That is what we were advocating, because we can compromise for anything, but not medical health.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selva, for a very lengthy explanation to Mr. Kabir's questions. So before we end the session, Mr. Selva, we have another question from Mr. Burhanuddin Saidin. Is the current law very effective and efficient in curbing illegal immigrants? How about coordination between various government agencies in the illegals? That's the question from Mr. Burhanuddin, Mr. Selva.
Yeah. Mr. Burhanuddin, police can arrest immigrants, immigration can arrest immigrants, custom can arrest immigrants, maritime can arrest immigrants, and RELA can arrest immigrants, because all can arrest immigrants. The question you have, I think you have hit the nail on the head, whereby there is no proper coordination. There is no proper coordination, whereby all is working in silo, because they come from different agencies. Even though under one ministry, they are from different agencies, and then they have their own enforcement. Immigration have their own enforcement system. Police has their own enforcement system. Normally, the raids are conducted in coordination, like what they have conducted in during the COVID. It was a fantastic coordination by police, army, and whatsoever. This is elephant in the room, Mr. Burhanuddin. Elephant in the room. Everybody is holding one part of elephant and describing as their problem. So we need to get the elephant out from the room. Who's going to do that is a unified or a dedicated, transparent authority, whereby the vitamin C corruption must be reduced, so that this can be enhanced. Without reducing that C, you can't advance, you can't coordinate, you can't do anything. I think that is the major decay which is holding us back to see a transparent and just enforcement exercise. This is my personal opinion. I don't quote anyone.
Thank you, Mr. Selva. I think the most important thing we're talking about integrity. Regardless any law, immigration law, whatsoever law, we go back to the integrity of the enforcement. If there is a lack of integrity, then we have a lot of loopholes that create ineffectiveness of this law. So same goes for immigration law. I think to ensure that in the future there will be no unfair treatment to legal or illegal foreign workers, is go back to the integrity of the enforcement. Mr. Selva, I think we come to the end of the session. So before we wrap up, is there any final say from you, Mr. Selva?
Yeah, anyway, thank you, MPC. And MPC is doing a wonderful job. And they are really organizing initiative with multiple sectors, plantation, construction, how to manage and how to mobilize locals and stabilize the foreign workers placement, whereby this COVID-19 is a real eye-opener, whereby even in neighboring country, there's tremendous layoff where Malaysians are depending on Malaysian labor market to be absorbed. And I think this is a blessings, and most of us should utilize this opportunity to give leeway, to give opportunity to our locals to be part in our nation building. And as a citizens, we have to be sensitive with the laws, with enforcement activities, and we should not take any negative impression, or we should not look low upon fellow immigrants, because they are also human beings as you and I. Whereby, before I conclude, I am a product of migration, whereby my father came from India in 1942 because looking for greener pastures. So on the same note, I see all the immigrants who come to this country because only one, they want to give a better life, better future for their next generation. With that, I thank you, the organizer. I thank you for all questions. And if anything is lacking, it's my own personal limitations. And I congratulate MPC for organizing such a honorable and very demanding topics during this pandemic. Thank you very much, Mr. Sugo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Selva. Ladies and gentlemen, before we end the session, just a few words. I think we are talking about a caring society. Sharing means caring. So regardless, are they local or illegals or foreign workers, we must care for them. And of course, I always mention that all for one, one for all. That's the betterment of the country itself. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining our webinar session. Thank you again, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.